A PlayStation hat and an Xbox t-shirt. That's the world we live in. Halo is coming to the PlayStation. This video is brought to you by viewers like you. Make sure you like and subscribe and join if you can. Thank you for your support. Hello humans, and welcome to another episode of Gen X Gamer. Let's talk about this particular subject that's making some people uncomfortable. You know, a lot of people, for example, of a certain age, us older gamers, right? It's a sacrilege. It's heresy. You know, and unfortunately, these are the times now. You know, just like I used to enjoy a newspaper every morning, I can't do that anymore because they don't sell newspapers, and if you want to buy one, it costs an arm and a leg, right? Or a magazine for that. Geez, I mean, I went to Barnes & Noble to get a retro magazine. They wanted $30. I'll just go buy 2 games for that price, you know? Regardless, guys, you know, I'll talk to you and tell you right now what you need to know, not what you want to hear, right? I'm not going to talk to you as the Gen X gamer, the guy that sits around this room and enjoys his games and kind of reminisces and stuff like that. I'm going to talk to you as a business analyst. I'll just break it down for you. You know, any company that has failed has to pivot. And whether you like it or not, the Xbox brand has failed. Has failed because of the intrusion of Microsoft. Now, you know, I'm not going to revisit every single problem that the Xbox has had, but basically, you know, when the Xbox started, you know, it was a brand new business. Microsoft didn't really believe in it. You know, they were trying to push it, and they finally did. And when they finally saw the success that the Xbox 360 was having, despite its hardware challenges, right? It was a success. They thought they would turn that into something else, into a media platform, right? Into other forms of entertainment delivery. And that never worked. The Xbox One was a complete disaster, and ever since then, this company has ruined the Xbox brand because they put people in charge, and they still keep putting people in charge that don't have gamers' best interest at heart, right? I'm not going to get into the political side of it because it really doesn't matter for this discussion. But you can't have leadership that engages in behavior and business decisions, right? When I'm talking about behavior, I'm talking about business decisions that go against what your customers want. And that's basically what has happened to the Xbox brand, right? The things that they work on is not what people want, and people vote with their wallets. And during this time, PlayStation has just done a much better job of giving players what they want. People speak with their wallets. And unfortunately, Microsoft was never able to recover the Xbox brand prestige, the sales, or anything else. Mainly because they injected their corporate structure into Xbox. And that was never Xbox. Xbox was a rebel company. They were coming out of the woodworks going, hey, we can do this too, after the failure of Sega. And they brought us something brand new, a different way of playing, innovation, fun games, you know, people getting together and playing, LAN parties, all kinds of stuff. You can't say that about Xbox now. Xbox is a brand that people are not choosing by huge amount of numbers. And if I was to be hired, for example, as to Microsoft as a business analyst, it would be my job, right? Just like I am hired at any other job, to make sure that they are the most profitable company as possible, right? That would be my job. You know, I go in there and I reduce costs, increase sales, increase profits. That's really what you want to do. And right now you have a situation where PlayStation has 80 million units sold, right? 80 million consoles. That's a huge number. You know, what does Xbox have? Not 80 million. What does Nintendo have? Just on the Switch, what is it, over 100 million now? Right? So if you're an investor, if you own stock in this company, and I am, by the way, full disclosure, you're looking at it from the point of view, and I'm not saying this as as a person who hates Xbox, and I'm not saying this as a greedy investor, I'm just telling you the reality of business, right? And the reality of business is we have a company that is not selling games to these other platforms that more than quintuple the amount of units that we could sell on our own platform. So every time I release a game, I'm leaving money on the table. Every single time. When my costs are going up because, everybody in the video game industry is bloated and at the same time crushed. They're spending too much money on consultants and people that are not making games, and they don't pay enough to the people that are actually programming the games. I don't need somebody to consult with me to tell me what kind of mirror I should look or spend more man hours making sure that every blade of grass looks exactly perfect. Even when it comes to that, we have older games that have better graphics than the new ones. We have older games where you could see, I'll show you a couple of instances here where the programming was better, where you could see through glass, where, bullets would make an imprint, stuff like that. But those are all the mistakes of the video game industry as a whole. But when it comes to Microsoft, they're just a company that has a different DNA than the origins of the Xbox. And they've infused their corporate leadership now onto Xbox. And that's why you hear all these things, like, oh, console exclusives, that's old thinking. It is. Right? We're older. We come from a different time. Was it better? I would argue yes. I would argue absolutely yes. It was more fun to have that competition. Competition breeds innovation. The problem with the video game industry now is it's uniform. Everybody wants uniformity, right? It doesn't matter what game. Every game should have a certain amount of characters of this and that and the other. This game has to be, the protagonist cannot be this kind of human, it has to be that kind of human. Why don't you just let artists program the game however they want? That can't happen at these corporations because, they have their ways of doing business, and that's just the way it's going to be. That's why a lot of people have turned into retro, because there's so much going on in the video game industry right now. Besides the fact that we're going to have cross-platform sales. Do you think Nintendo's going to do that? No. Why? They don't need to. Neither is PlayStation. Are they going to do PC? They should. Right? If I'm an analyst working for Microsoft, I need to do PC, I need to do other platforms, and I need to do mobile. That's where it's going. It's inevitable. There isn't anything you're going to do about it. Why? There's too much money to be made. Right? You don't want to be last to the party. Right? You do not want to be last to the party. And you might say, you know what? Yeah, maybe Microsoft is just panicking here, and they should just release another console, do this and that and the other. No, it's not panicking, right? They don't see it as that. You're not, if there's a fire in a building, or there's a let's say there's a flood, right, coming to your town, and there's a flood and you can hear the news. If you leave first and there's nobody on the road, you're not panicking. It's the people that are leaving last that are panicking. Microsoft and their analysts have determined that they want to be first to the party. They're going to explore all these different revenue streams. Why? Because they spent a lot of money on these companies, buying these companies up, these developers up that have been underperforming. Well, you can have a mediocre game and it's going to sell so much on your platform, but if you have a mediocre game on 3 different platforms, you're going to sell at least another 2-3 million units. That's what you want to do. Microsoft in the future is going to put, retro compilations like this on any phone that can handle it. That's just the truth. And that's probably what other companies are going to do in the future. So they're just being first to the party. This is how the business will change. Just like we can't read newspapers every day in a lot of places, console exclusives are a thing of the past, and it's very uncomfortable, and it's not as good as the past. I would argue, and I think a lot of you would agree with me too. This sense of uniformity, if I can play it anywhere, why should I buy an Xbox? Well, they have a different proposition. The new proposition of Xbox is you can buy our games anywhere in any platform. We're going to sell you the most expensive consoles if you really want to know what they should play like. Unfortunately, that hasn't worked, because if you get an Xbox game and you play it on a PlayStation, sometimes it's better. It runs better on a PlayStation. It's just better engineered. So that's why they lost, and I'm really just reflecting, what has been, and enjoying what I have. I'm really glad that I have these, because it's a different time. I would say it's a better time in gaming that is never going to return, and that's what we have to accept. It's never going to be the same. Not between these companies. There'll be other companies, but they're going to go for the same thing, or else they're not going to make enough money. And if they don't make enough money, then they can't pay the employees what they want. The future for me is probably in retro and independent games. I will remember those battles of the past, but they're not going to come again, unfortunately. And the sad thing is that when Halo comes out, most people are going to be playing it on a PlayStation. All right, humans, I'll catch you on the next one. Take care.
Hey guys, thank you for watching. Hey, you made it this far, you might as well subscribe. Make sure you hit that like button and join if you can.